we have any family representatives here? Can you please come forward, please?
All the families of the victims.
All the families of the victims, can you please come forward?
As they're coming forward. We still have a few more people that are coming on their way representing their families, and we don't want to leave anyone out. We do appreciate everybody who's out today, who's standing with us in solidarity and saying that you demand that she does her job also. You know, we are examples, my family and I, we are examples of what God's healing can do. And we are examples of how to roll up your sleeves and ball up your fists and jab back. We want justice, and we want justice for Alan Blueford, but we want justice for all the families. We want all of these justified, supposedly homicide, debauchery that they get away with. We want all of them investigated, and we want to jail these killer cops. They should not be out. Their job is to protect and serve, not shoot to kill.
That's right.
That's not what we're here for. And we're in election year. We do have a voice. We are going to make a stand, and we are going to make waves, and we are going to use our voices and everything we got to say, damn it, do your job. Do your job.
Do your job.
Do your job. Do your job. Do your job. Do your job. Do your job. Do your job. Do your job. Do your job. Do your job. Do your job. Do your job. Do your job. Do your job. All right. Thank you, everybody. I'm gonna move the program around a little bit. I have a man here who is a champion for justice. After Alan was murdered, he came forward to our family. He asked, how could he help? He listened to us. He helped wipe away some of our tears. And he says he's going to take everything that he's got. He's in 100% to fight against police brutality. He understands that we can't get Alan back. But what we can do is we can fight so this doesn't happen. And all of these beautiful families don't have to suffer each night in pain and battle their grief and cannot get an understanding, and there's no peace. But we're going to continue to fight, and we're going to continue to move. And right now, I am going to bring up Mr. Dan Siegel, the next mayor of Oakland, the champion of justice, the man who doesn't mind rolling up his sleeve and throwing a few jabs right back at their ass. Here you go, Dan.
Thank you, Jeralynn, and thank you all for being here. I think after Josh finished, though, I don't really have much to say. Maybe I'll fill in a couple of the details, but I think we all have the story down, don't we? I was actually kind of hurt yesterday when I heard the announcement by Kamala Harris that she's running for re-election, and that no one's running against her. And it may be that she thinks she has the entire state sewed up, and I think we have to make it clear that she doesn't have us sewed up because she's not doing her job.
That's right.
I think there are two issues that we need to focus on a little bit as we think of the murder of Alan Blueford and of the other people whose families are here today. The first is the issue of racial profiling. The killing of Alan Blueford is the textbook example of racial profiling. May 6, 2012, late in the evening before midnight, Alan and two of his friends are committing the crime of hanging out. They are young black men hanging out in East Oakland, wearing baggy jeans and hoodie sweatshirts. Apparently a crime, because when Officer Masso and Officer Joseph Fessmeyer saw them on the street, they thought, well, this is something that we need to investigate. Pretty hard to figure out, isn't it?
Yeah.
They abuse, and people should understand this. There's a lot of debate about this stop and frisk issue. The United States Supreme Court, in a case called Terry versus Ohio, said that if police officers have reasonable, individualized suspicion that a crime has been committed and that the person standing in front of them may have committed the crime, they can stop that person, make inquiries, even frisk that person if something indicates that the person may be holding a weapon. That's legal stop and frisk. And the key words there are individualized reasonable suspicion. And it's not individualized reasonable suspicion to be a young African-American man wearing a hoodie sweatshirt in the evening in East Oakland. That's everybody, or most everybody. So Masso and Fessmeyer stopped them. They accosted them. They pushed one of Alan's friends, and Alan took off, running away from Masso. And it's important to know that when Masso was first interviewed, he said this was simply a voluntary stop and that Alan was within his rights to run away. But when he did run away, Masso's experience being a military cop in Iraq and other places in Europe took over. He chased, he pulled out his gun. Alan tripped over a curb, crashed into a fence, and Masso shot him 3 times, murdering him on the street. Then, of course, Masso shot himself in the foot. And there's never been a justification developed in court for why that happened, why he stopped him, why he chased him. They claim that Alan had a gun, but whether or not Alan had a gun, Masso did not know when he stopped him and when he chased him. So whatever came out of that confrontation was unlawful. And I know the families of all the people here have similar stories. But let's talk a little bit about Kamala Harris, because that's the other second or third injustice we're facing here. After Alan was killed, his family, his friends, many of you went to Nancy O'Malley, the Alameda County DA, and said, investigate this man, prosecute him for homicide. He killed a man without justification. Nancy O'Malley's investigation consisted of listening to Officer Masso. When you read her report, that was no investigation. That was simply an echo of what Masso said to justify himself. Didn't even look into the fact that Officer Masso was suffering from PTSD as a result of his war activity. Didn't even look into the fact that the Oakland cops found Officer Masso violated department policy by not turning on his lapel camera and by not notifying the other police that he was chasing Alan. Didn't look into the fact that Masso's chase of Alan Blueford was contrary to department regulations. They just whitewashed the whole thing. So we looked further. We determined, and everyone should know this, the Attorney General of California is the #1 law enforcement official in the state. Under Article 5 of the California Constitution, Kamala Harris has the job and the responsibility to supervise the DAs throughout the state, to supervise law enforcement, to fix the errors that these DAs make. And so we asked her, and we were up in Sacramento in October at a rally like this, which brought together the families and supporters of victims of police terror from around the state. We went to Kamala Harris's office. We read a letter that we wrote to her asking her to prosecute Masso, to at least investigate Masso. 4 weeks later, we got a form letter back from one of her assistants. And the form letter said, sorry, no thanks, we're not going to do anything. We're satisfied with Nancy O'Malley's investigation. So that's the lesson for all of us. That's the way in which law enforcement protects its own in the state of California, why there is no justice in going to the top cop in the state and asking her to prosecute other police officers. It's just not going to happen. The only time it's ever happened, as many of you know, is in the killing of Oscar Grant, and that's because people made a movie about it. There were motion pictures, videos taken of Meserly murdering Oscar Grant. Otherwise, in Alameda County, there would have been no prosecution. So all I have to say to you is we need to follow this candidate around the state as she makes speeches talking about her great record fighting around environmental or consumer issues, and say, what about civil rights? What about the civil rights of young black and brown men who were murdered like dogs by police officers? That's part of your job. Kamala Harris, do your damn job.
I want to direct everyone to the window so we can see what's going on inside.
All right.
I want everybody to give,
Hold your fists up.
put your fists up and let them know that we're here representing them too. Justice for Alan Blueford.
Justice for Alan Blueford.
Justice for Oscar Grant.
Justice for Oscar Grant.
Justice for Jesse.
Justice for Jesse.
Justice for Andy.
Justice for Andy.
Do your job.
Do your job.
Do your job.
Do your job.
Do your job. Do your job. Do your job. Do your job. Do your job. Do your job. Do your job.
All right, thank you, thank you. The next person I'm going to bring up, I'm so honored to be in just 5 feet of this woman. This is a great black woman that always stood for communities around the world and always and still fighting for the power of the people. Let's give it up for Elaine Brown.
We say power to the people, and I'm sorry to see not enough people are out here, but that doesn't mean that we become disenchanted. One thing I say, when we say do your job, you have to know that the job of the state is to protect the state interests. So actually Kamala Harris is doing her job. She's just not representing the interests of the people any more than Nancy O'Malley. So we fought for women to get in position so they could break through the glass ceiling. This is what the bitches did, okay? I can say that. Some of you can't, but I can, okay? So I want to say that you remember that, as was just pointed out, Kamala Harris is running for a re-election, right? And I think we have to chase her down and follow her everywhere she goes and make sure she has no peace until we get justice. There's no peace for Kamala Harris. But we're right here in Oakland, right? And Nancy O'Malley, wherever Nancy O'Malley's office is, right around the corner somewhere, we need to hound her too. Because we can't allow her to just escape on some tech. She exonerated Massa, right? She said everything was okay. She didn't, and back in the day, I mean, this is amazing that I would be standing here, and I hate to tell my age, but I only say it in places like this. 70 years old, 40-some years ago, we said the same thing, didn't we? We talked about power to the people. We talked about, of course, we talked about off the pig. Nobody heard that part, huh? We talked about all of that, and here we are 40-some years later in a city that's considered the refuge of the radical refuge, and all we can do is talk about what we're going to do to make Kamala Harris do her job. I think we want her to do more than her job. We want her to do our job, which is to find justice. That's what she theoretically does. But she is a part of the state, and the state protects its interests. And what are its interests? All of these big businesses, so forth and so on. Those are the state interests that Kamala Harris and O'Malley protect. Now the fact is, and we just have to remember this, that Alan Blueford was only 19 years old when he was...
18.
18. Okay. Excuse me. I stand corrected. He was 18 years old. He was a young black man. Now, what's important about that is that we pretend that race is no longer an issue because we have Kamala Harris, who identifies herself as a black woman. I'm not sure if you put kente cloth on her, she would be a black woman, but let's just assume that that's true for the moment. So she identifies as a black woman, and you got black DAs, assistant DAs, you got a whole bunch of Negroes in the Oakland PD, you got a whole bunch of Negroes in the DA's office, so they're black. So everybody's like, well, this is not a black issue anymore. But it's Alan Blueford who was killed, and that's what we have to remember. Right. Because what we see is who gets gunned down. And I don't care if Masso is supposed to, whatever Masso is supposed to be, he's another one that rode in on the blood of the Panther and everything else to get equal action. This is what you did with getting your equal access, is you gunned down black men. So we have to remember there is a race issue here, and it is racist. Because that is exactly what we're seeing here in the case of Alan Blueford. The real question is, how long are we going to look to the system and to the state to give us justice? That's the only issue on the table, isn't it? Because we've been doing, I personally can talk about Oakland 40-some years ago, asking for the same things, making the same kinds of demands. So we have to make up our minds what we want to do. And I think the easiest thing, I love seeing some civil disobedience, right? We love this. We like civil disobedience. That's the best we're going to do. Now, you know, in the Black Panther Party back in the day, we said for every act of aggression and repression by the state, meaning the cops, the police, or whatever venue, whatever type of police, that there has to be a consequence. And that's the only thing these people understand is consequences. Yeah. And if we don't deliver consequences, then they just keep on moving. The only reason there was even a trial for Messerly, even though it was a piss-poor trial driven down to L.A., that Nancy O'Malley allowed to go to L.A. and did not fight vigorously for against the change of venue. I don't know how you go to L.A. from here. Why you go to Haywood or somewhere, you know. But anyway, I digress. It's Sacramento, right? Stockton, for that matter. But anyway, the point is, we cannot get confused by the trees and forget the forest. These are the details. We know that Alan Blueford should not have been gunned. He was murdered like a dog in the street. He was murdered. We have to remember that. But this is not unusual. This is a state action. We just protested our little protest against the DAC, the domain, what do they call it now? The domain awareness. Isn't that amazing? What kind of term is that? This stuff is it's just a complete ring around Oakland, because Oakland has too many people protesting, too many black people, too many poor people, and they can't figure out what to do with us. They're going to have to kill all of us. They don't have enough room to imprison all of us, so they don't know what the hell to do with us, okay? So we've got to make some noise, and when I say noise, I mean it by any means necessary. That's something that Malcolm X talked about, and we have to understand what that means. Whatever is effective, it doesn't mean that this is effective versus that is effective, but somebody has to bring the state to its knees to do justice in this particular case, and in all cases. We got to bring the state to its knees. We have to force O'Malley to put Masso on trial. We need to be in the courtroom every time our ass shows up. We need to have somebody out there talking about her. She's willing to prosecute rapists, as she said. I think she's into it. That was her previous thing. She's willing to do this, but she's not willing to prosecute Masso. So we have to make it hard for her to exist in the city of Oakland. That's our job. We need to ride on her, ride on with cameras, running around in her little suits and everything, talking about she wants to be the Attorney General again. We need to ride down. So I'm calling on the Blueford Committee, and I certainly want to be a part of that. Let's try to let's get the roots of where these people are going to be day by day, hound them. That's all we can do, at least for now, right? Because we know we will not bring this young brother back. And as a mother, it's unbearable for me to imagine it and to think about what Mrs. Blueford is going through, so I don't think about it, because it's too hard. It's too hard, and we will never bring this brother back. But we can't keep on saying, looking to the state to do the right thing. We're going to have to bring some consequences down on their heads so they will do the right thing. So I want to ask us all today, if we really want to organize, let us do that. Let us organize for real change. This will only be one step, but it will be one step if we take it together. Right. So I say we need to march on Kamala Harris. We need to march down on Nancy O'Malley. We need to keep up with the OPD. There ain't enough OPD. They go home. Where they go? Concord or somewhere at night? They don't live here, right? So I think we need to start organizing day-to-day kinds of actions if we can. People work, people, do this and that, but wherever you find a place to fit in, get in, and do the best that we can. This city is known as a city for radical change because it lives with the spirit of the Panther, if I can say that. And I would like to resurrect the spirit of the Panther and tell us that let us march on these people and let us organize together so that we can begin to bring back power to the people. Thank you very much.
Give her another hand.